Welcome to Alberta Conservation Association's Harvest Your Own podcast, the resource for everything hunting, navigating through the field, the butcher shop, and the kitchen. Life is all about great food. Let's get started.
I'm your host, Brad Fenson, an avid outdoor enthusiast who has worked as a freelance journalist, photographer, and public speaker for over 3 decades. I have hunted, fished, and foraged all my life and hope to share my passion for the outdoors. Along the way, I want to encourage everyone to harvest wild proteins and enjoy the satisfaction of providing the next meal for your family. Welcome to this week's show on Harvest Your Own. Our goal is to educate, entertain, and inspire individuals to get outdoors and create a connection between food, health, and your future meals. Our guest today is Todd Zimmerling with ACA. Todd, tell us a little bit about ACA.
Well, the Alberta Conservation Association is a not-for-profit delegated administrative organization in Alberta. So it sounds confusing, but basically what it means is we function both as a not-for-profit conservation organization, but we are also closely linked to the Alberta government. We work very closely with Alberta Environment Parks. And if you're a hunter or an angler in Alberta, anytime you buy a license or a tag, a portion of what you've just purchased comes back to the Alberta Conservation Association to do a wide range of conservation work across the province.
Yeah, more than just conservation work. We're here to help anglers and hunters and get more people involved, which is what we're talking about today, Harvest Your Own. And maybe I'll just play a little bump here so that we can introduce the program.
This podcast is produced for Harvest Your Own, a program dedicated to those who want to reconnect with food and health through their experiences outdoors. HarvestYourOwn.ca is a resource for individuals to learn more about hunting and the outdoors. There's information to get you started and ensure that your compass stays pointed in the right direction to be successful. Where's your next meal coming from?
So that's a pretty good overview of Harvest Your Own and what it's meant to accomplish. Tell us a little bit about the background, though. Like, how was Harvest Your Own created, or why?
Well, basically, I think the concept came around 3 or 4 years ago. Essentially, one of our mandates, as you point out, the Alberta Conservation Association, is to promote hunting and angling. And we don't necessarily need everybody out there become a hunter and angler, and I think most hunters and anglers don't necessarily want everybody hunting and angling, but we do want to have the majority of people at least seeing the importance, the relevance of hunting and angling, why it's okay to be a hunter or an angler. And so hunting in particular, we were looking at how do we improve the image, how do we get more people interested, how do we reach people who are sort of on the fence, that they like the concept maybe, but they don't know enough about it. So if they go to some of your typical hunting organizations or some of the typical websites, it can be a little intimidating. So we're trying to look at how do we reach a group of people that have some interest but would be intimidated by the average hunting site, that maybe are looking at getting into hunting through, I would consider sort of the non-traditional means. So a lot of people have gotten involved in hunting in the past because their family did it, their dad, their uncle, grandfather, that sort of thing. But more and more we're seeing people getting interested that are starting as young adults. They haven't had any influence from family members. It's just something that they've decided they'd like to try. So we wanted to develop a resource that would essentially appeal to those people, get them interested, and be less intimidating, and provide a wide range of information for them as to how to get started and what to expect and where to go and all those kinds of things.
Well, it's a very interesting program. I've looked across North America, and I don't see anything of its kind anywhere else on the internet. With other departments, private conservation groups, or anything. There's bits and pieces of education out there, but this is really a comprehensive library of knowledge that is not only shared, but it also provides a lot of guidance. Like you said, it's easy for me to explain my roots in hunting. I came from a hunting family, and it was just a natural progression to take the courses and do all of it. I never had a question about it. I just fell right into it. But it is very vogue nowadays. We've seen it headline news in a lot of papers where people want to collect their own protein, start hunting and doing these things, but how do you get started? So I think it really fills a unique niche out there, and hopefully we see more and more people coming into the fray, so to speak, and I think we do. We've got some stats this year that are quite interesting in Alberta. with the amount of spring bear hunters and bow hunters, and even the number of hunters that have participated in the draws and bought wildlife certificates.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about it that I think the idea of getting your own protein is something that more and more people think about. Certainly this year with the COVID scare going on, I think even more people are thinking about, okay, well, although the reality of me not being able to get meat at the supermarket seems pretty slim, there was that potential there. At one point, for a couple days, people were very concerned about that, and it got a lot more people thinking about, well, what would I do? How could I get my own meat if I needed to? And we've seen an uptick in the number of people coming to the website. They get a better sense of how would you do it. And the whole point of our website is to try to make it, like I said, non-intimidating. So it has everything from, here's your first questions. How would you get started? What are the basic steps that you would take to get there? Right to, how, if I do get something, how do I process it in the field? To, okay, now how do I eat it? And that is a big thing that not just new hunters, but even a lot of the old-time hunters need to learn is how do you eat wild game? How do you cook wild game appropriately? Because far too many people don't do it properly.
I've got a lot of feedback about Harvest Your Own from people. They've gone on the site and really appreciate the guidance and information that they receive there. Lots of longtime hunters that I know have never processed their own meat. So it's a resource for them. I've talked to a couple people that have no background at all in hunting, and they navigated the site and were able to find out where to go take their courses and what needed to be done and the length of time it was going to take and all the rest of it. So, if we look at the layout of the website itself, it is very comprehensive in terms of what it covers. And if you're a newbie, you know exactly where to start. If you are a hunter and want to expand on what your knowledge base is or learn more things, you can certainly do that too. And there's lots of written articles, great photography, and there's also educational videos.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do is provide as much as possible. And I guess the other important thing we're trying to do is we're not trying to duplicate what other groups do. And I think that's one of the unique things about the Alberta Conservation Association and our relationship is that we are a member group organization. So by that I mean we have other conservation groups that sit on our board, and they're the ones that direct what we do. And as a result, when we developed Harvest Your Own, we weren't looking to try and duplicate that. So we provide the information from the Alberta Hunter Education Instructors Association. So if you're trying to get your courses, that's who you'd go to see. If you're looking for mentors, that's who you'd go to see, or to the Alberta Fish and Game Association for mentors. If you're looking to find a little bit more about where you might be able to do some upland game bird hunting, well, we push you to Pheasants Forever. So we do our best to try and incorporate the information that is already out there and the resources are out there, because we know we can accomplish more if we're doing it together, and that's really what we've been trying to do.
Absolutely. And when you complement all the other programs that are already out there and exist, it just helps everyone along the road, including those people that want to get into hunting. First and foremost, it allows them to make the connections, get the information they need, find the mentors, as you mentioned, and all the rest of it. So it does fill a very unique role in Alberta, and it is an Alberta-based program. Having said that, I've got a lot of feedback from other provinces and even out of the States where people have come for information because it is relevant almost anywhere. The information is written for what's required here for legislation and where you can go hunting and the species we have, but it is very relevant across the hunting community in North America.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, the techniques that we talk about are common for hunting across North America, and many of the same species we have here in other and in other jurisdictions. So there's no doubt that the information on there is very relevant. And I would say also the information around sort of the basics of why someone might want to hunt, the benefits. I mean, that is something that should appeal to anybody, no matter where you are, when you're thinking about getting into hunting. So there's a fair bit of information about that, the nutritional values of hunted species, what you can expect there, and as I said, the how to hunt, cook them, that kind of thing. That's relevant to everybody, no matter where you are.
Absolutely, and it's you're going to hear a lot more of that on the Harvest Your Own podcast. That's why we've extended this as part of the Harvest Your Own program. We want to get a doctor in here to talk to us about the nutritional value of wild game. We want to get people in and talk about mentorship, or somebody that grew up in a hunting family versus somebody that knows nobody that hunts and wants to get started, and how to find the resources, the people that can help lead them. So how old is Harvest Your Own?
It's been up for just over 3 years now.
That's right. And I think anyone that hasn't visited it yet, we can give them a little bit of a roadmap to get there.
This podcast was made possible by Alberta Conservation Association and the Harvest Your Own community. If you're interested in harvesting your own food, there's a comprehensive collection of information to gain insight and knowledge. Head to the field, harvest your own protein, prepare it, and taste the results. HarvestYourOwn.ca is a library of information from getting started and geared up to processing, butchering, and cooking wild game to make the connection between health and food.
Well, that's exactly what we've been talking about here, is making that connection, health, field to fork experience, and we hear a lot of that in the news nowadays. It's the in thing. So I like to tell people, the old song, I was country when country wasn't cool. Well, I was a hunter when hunting wasn't necessarily cool. So
Right, yep.
Harvest Your Own can actually bring everyone up to speed, and they can all learn from it. It's interesting how we stay relevant too. Alberta just announced that we have a new hunting opportunity, Sandhill Cranes, and that will open up this September. We actually haven't seen a new hunting opportunity since 2008, I believe it was, when Minister Morton brought our bison hunt in. Of course, that isn't around anymore either because of some bad winters, but we don't get a lot of opportunity for new hunting adventures. This is one, and I believe that Harvest Your Own will be ready to help hunters that have never seen a crane or know what they look like or how to set up or anything else. It's a good example of where you can go for information, get everything you need to go out and be successful in the field.
Yeah, that certainly will be our goal. We're already working with a number of people to get us some expertise that we can put up on the site. Yeah, everything, like say, from identification of the species looking for to how do you hunt it to, most importantly to me, how you eat it, how you cook it, how you make sure it tastes good in the end, because you go through a lot of effort to harvest these animals, and you want to make sure you treat it appropriately when it comes to the cooking side, because that's the end product.
And there's a big emphasis on that. Harvest Your Own has a pile of recipes, and for basically any of the game species that we do have in Alberta. And you've been over for dinner. We've had some lunches where we've had people in that haven't had a lot of wild game experience. They had preconceived notions, and I think they left wanting to have some wild proteins in their freezer.
Oh, absolutely, and that makes all the difference. And it's interesting. We do a public survey every 3 years where basically a random selection of Albertans are asked a bunch of questions about hunting and fishing and other outdoor activities. But one of the things we found in our last survey was, although we have roughly about 5% of adult Albertans hunt, 41% said they'd eaten wild game in the last 12 months. So it's a huge number of people who are eating wild game without actually participating in the hunting side of things. And certainly that's where we see people become interested in hunting, or at least have a positive attitude towards hunting. So you don't necessarily have to be doing the harvesting yourself, but if you're supplying it to others, those other individuals are really starting to see why, this is a good thing to do.
Yeah, that really increases the value of the information that's out there. Is society as a whole, if they understand hunting and the role that people have and sourcing their own foods and the health benefits and all the rest of it, it makes it a whole lot more, it generates the support from people that don't hunt. And that is very important to maintain our season's opportunities and all the rest of it.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So Harvest Your Own. It has been around for 2.5 years. It's expanded. They're on social media. We're doing podcasts. Are we going to be able to keep putting up more information and new information on a regular basis? Where do you see it going in the future?
Well, I certainly hope we can keep putting up new information. Otherwise, we're all going to be out of jobs. But yeah, I mean, certainly we'll be looking at putting up a lot more information around new hunting seasons, as we just had. But as well, we're looking also to do more stories around sort of the experience. Getting more information from those people who are out there, and getting some information from maybe some people listening right now that have done it for the first time, get their story, hear why and how, and if they're going to do it again, all those kinds of things. Because I think it really helps for somebody who hasn't done this before to start to hear from others who were in the same position maybe just a year ago, and now they have gone for their first hunting trip, and what was it like? What was the experience? I think that's something that a lot of us, those of us who do hunt, we get really easily when someone talks about the experience of hunting. But if you've never hunted before, it's really hard to imagine what the experience is like. I mean, one of the things I love most about hunting in the fall is going out waterfowl hunting and being there as the sun comes up. And, if you're in a field, the sun comes up and the fields aren't completely harvested yet, so it's that golden hue, and it's peaceful and calm, and it's just an amazing experience just to see that. So it's something that I know, you're looking at me smiling thinking, yeah, I know exactly what you mean because you've hunted before. But if somebody hasn't hunted before, that's something that really they can't picture at this point. So I think the more we can get those kinds of stories, experiences on the website for other people to hear about, the more you'll see people more comfortable with the idea of getting involved and hearing that, other people are nervous too. My first time hunting, I was nervous too. Everybody's nervous about doing something first time, but it doesn't mean you can't overcome that and have a great time.
Oh, absolutely. And I believe that's where we're going with our future guests. We're going to have a lot of people on that grew up in hunting families, as I mentioned. And we've got some unique stories where some young women have taken on the task of getting ready for their hunt, learned everything, gone out on their own, and have been successful. And those are great stories to share, and I look forward to having some of those guests on. One of the things I like to ask everyone that's going to be on the show is, how did you get involved in hunting? Like, what's your story?
Yeah, so I would say I got involved sort of what would be considered traditional manner in that my father was a hunter. All his family hunted. I've got 7 uncles. They all hunted. So it was just, as you said, it's sort of just part of the family tradition. You just grew up and that's what you did. You went out with Dad in the fall to go hunting. So it was fairly easy for me to fall into it. I certainly didn't have any questions as to why I wouldn't do it. I just automatically, this is something that looks fun. I'd like to do. I enjoyed the wild game meat. So I started from a young age. Basically, I went out before I was even legally allowed to hunt. So I just followed Dad around during a couple of days of hunting season every year. And it sort of grew from there. But I certainly, when I started having kids, so I've got a son and a daughter, I made every effort to try and involve them in hunting and fishing to make sure it's something that they saw. I certainly gave them the choice. If they didn't want to, that's fine. They could move out of the house if they didn't want to hunt. But no, I kid. They both really got into it. They were sort of traditionally the same way because Dad and Mom, my wife, hunts as well. Because the two of us hunted, it was fairly simple that they would step into it as well.
Yes, and appealing. I mean, I believe that's what happens. We have twin girls that are 27 months old, and we went into Cabela's the other day, and they walked around the store, said, moose, elk, antelope. They knew all of the critters, and somebody came by and looked at them as though they were like midgets because they were talking full sentences and knew what all the animals were when some of the people standing next to them didn't. So I have a feeling my girls are going to be avid hunters in the future, and we actually had them out in the blind last year and quite enjoyed it. It was a bit of a show and a bit of a circus too, but you sort of make the time to make it a positive experience, and hopefully it was as positive for them as it was for me because I remember that day fondly.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. It's I'm sure your children will become avid hunters, no doubt about it. But it really all, when it comes down to that sort of experience, it comes down to how much effort you put into involving your children in it. It's like anything else, right? If you don't involve them, chances are they're not going to be as interested. If you do, then they're probably going to be interested.
Yeah, and hunting, we talk about our roots and coming from hunting families, but I believe there's actually been a great evolution as we've moved along generation to generation. Just the way people cook wild game has changed significantly. My mom would be the first to tell you that there was only a couple ways that she cooked deer or duck, and it certainly isn't the same as how we prepare it nowadays. Everything was well done, but that's how they did their beef and pork and everything. So not only has hunting changed, but the way we deal with our bounty has changed, and it's very beneficial. My wife is a really good example. She grew up in a home where they didn't hunt. They occasionally had some wild game, but her experiences with it weren't very good. Today, that's all she'll eat. If we go out to a steakhouse, she won't order a beefsteak. She'll have a salad or crab cakes or something because it's not the same as her elk steak at home or her moose steak. Right. So, I mean, it gives me great pleasure to be able to say that, but it does have a big influence on people. And I still eat beef and enjoy it. And my biggest challenge is always coming up with more and new recipes that take hunting to the next level for everybody.
Right, yeah. Well, I'd say I'd lean much more towards your wife's attitude. When I go out for dinner, I don't normally order beef. I usually order something that isn't meat because I can get meat and wild game meat at home. So, yes. The same sort of idea. But, yeah, there's no doubt about it. If you do a lot of hunting and have your freezer full, you get very used to having that kind of meat and the taste that comes with it. And the fact that, as you say, there's so many different recipes you can use. If you know how to cook it properly, it turns out great every time. Right.
And I think that's the other part of Harvest Your Own that makes me very happy to see is, I'll call it, we're dispelling the myths. You know, I've heard from so many people, you can't eat snow goose. They call them sky carp and tundra munchers and all these derogatory names, but snow goose is one of our favorites. I mean, I've got pictures of our girls when they're 16 months old and they're holding a braised snow goose leg in their hand, and they ate more than one of them. So,
yeah, I guess I would challenge anybody to have a barbecued pulled goose sandwich and say they didn't like it.
Absolutely.
You couldn't tell that it was snow goose. That's for sure. You couldn't. Right. Yeah, it's amazing.
So, I mean, anybody that's out there that is a hunter or has obtained some wild game from a neighbor or something, if you wanted to really enjoy it and impress some people or do some experimenting on your own, you can actually go on to Harvest Your Own and look up recipes by species. If you know you got a piece of antelope or you've got a Canada goose or whatever it is you have, some burger, you can go there and automatically find some recipes that you could dive into with full explanations and have it taste great.
Absolutely, yes. You'll never hear any complaints when people have actually followed a good recipe, that's for sure.
Right. And I see on the site there's also influence. You've actually had some professional chefs prepare some recipes and things for different events that ACA has hosted, Alberta Conservation Association, and basically brought it to Harvest Your Own as a benefit.
Yeah, every year we run the Tabor Pheasant Festival down in Tabor, and we bring in professional chefs to do up recipes with pheasant, and with those recipes are now up on the site as well. But we also have recipes from a number of other excellent cooks, yourself included, with like you said, all kinds of varieties of game meat and cuts of meat, and everything from duck tacos to the pulled goose I mentioned, to steaks, burgers, you name it. There's everything on there.
Right. And it's interesting, the influence. Alberta Conservation Association also holds a waterfowl warm-up in August, and it's basically a celebration for being a bird hunter. Get together, shoot some clay targets, some friendly competition. But the last couple of years, what we've done is we've served waterfowl hunters waterfowl in ways that they might not have thought of, or people had preconceived notions. Like, a lot of bird hunters don't keep the legs and thighs, and to me, they're as good as any of the breast meat, if not better. And I think we've changed opinion amongst the hunting community itself.
Yeah, I would put myself in the category of someone who never used to keep the legs, but I had them for supper last night. Yeah, if done properly, they're fabulous. They're better than any chicken wing you'll get, for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. I agree with you. Other ways to get into hunting. You talked about the Pheasant Festival briefly. There is a mentorship program component to that. Could you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the Pheasant Festival happens every year. Basically, it begins the Saturday after October 15th. So October 15th is the start of the season. So whatever the Saturday is, that's when we start. And the first weekend, the Saturday, Sunday, is actually novice hunts. So if somebody is interested in trying upland game bird hunting for the first time, you can certainly go and sign yourself up, and it's free of charge. We ask for a $20 deposit to make sure people are going to show up, but you can get your money back when you get there. And essentially, you get to just walk out in the field with a mentor right beside you and harvest your first pheasant. If you're lucky, your second pheasant as well. So it's really a good time, and age isn't an issue. We've got everybody from 10 years old up to, I think our oldest was a 92-year-old at one point in time. In fact, last year, our average age for the novice hunt was mid-30s. So it's a quite interesting number of, like I said, adults who are getting more and more interested in hunting. And so if you're interested, you can go to our website and check out the Tabor Pheasant Festival and the novice hunt.
Yeah, I'll just mention as well at the Pheasant Festival, you can actually go into a lottery to get a site where you know there's birds. So if you're starting out and you want to make sure you're going to the right spot, or maybe take someone with you, or hook up with somebody else that hunts, it's a great way to get in the field, get some experience, and have the confidence that the critters are actually there.
Yeah, you have the confidence critters are there, and maybe feel a little more dejected if you don't find any, because you know they were there. At least if you go to other sites and you don't find, you can just claim there were no birds there to start with. So I've seen it both ways. Yeah,
I've seen them fly away after I've shot too, and I say they are the original fast food.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
This part of our podcast I call Food for Thought. What is your favorite recipe or wild game?
Well, that's a really tough one, because I don't know if I have a single favorite. I really, really enjoy a good elk steak on the barbecue. I don't think you can beat that. But as I was mentioning just a few minutes ago, barbecued pulled goose is excellent as well. I can't beat that for a lunchtime snack, that's for sure. So those would probably be my two top ones. A good elk steak and the barbecued pulled goose sandwich would be my two favorites. But I can't say I have one I don't like.
Right. And luckily for me, I get to ask the question, because I don't know if I could answer that. We're very lucky to have a wide assortment of wild game in the freezer every year. And I write recipe columns for several magazines and websites, and quite enjoy the diversity and variety and the different things that we can do with the wild game on a regular basis. At this time, I would like to thank you for being a guest on the show, the episode 1. And we're going to take this a lot further into the future. We hope to inspire people to reconnect with nature and appreciate where your food comes from by harvesting your own. For more information on getting started, or to learn specifics about the Field to Fork experience, visit harvestyourown.ca and follow on Facebook and Instagram. Check back often for new material, recipes, and videos that are posted regularly. Please subscribe to Harvest Your Own podcast and take the time to rate and review the show to help us build a dedicated core of passionate hunters as our regular audience. Until next time, embrace the outdoors and all it has to offer. Thanks for joining us.